Welcome back to another episode of Roots and Readers. I'm Jennifer Forbes here at the Hampton Park Library. Just here to do a wrap-up of our fall-winter garden, show you where the plants are at this point. We're going to be harvesting them soon in the next month or so and get the beds ready for our spring and summer planting. If you'd like to come and help us out this spring and summer with our vegetable garden or even with the flower garden that the Master Gardeners maintain, just contact us at the Hampton Park Library and we'd be happy to bring you out and use your help. It's not a community garden without your help. As you can see in our lettuce beds, we have had success with the green onions, and we only have one lettuce plant left. Lettuce does well through frosts, but not freezes. So these last freezes that we had here in the depth of winter actually finished off our lettuces. But we do have one hardy one that is still going. This is Iceberg Lettuce. I've kind of left it because it hasn't grown a head yet. However, I don't think it's going to have time to grow a head before I have to prep this bed for our spring planting. But as you can see, this lettuce has been a very hardy one and has lasted through our winter. So this is our cabbage bed. As you can see, the cabbage has really enjoyed the cool temperatures this winter. They're still going strong. If you'll look here on our biggest one, it is starting to form the head of cabbage in the middle. If you'll notice, cabbage will put out larger leaves for a while, and then it'll start to form a head. This one's starting to form a head in the middle. This one is doing a really good job. Those tightly whorled leaves in the middle are forming the actual head of cabbage like what you see at the grocery store. Our radish bed has done pretty well this winter. It looks a little bare, however, that's because the radish seeds that I planted appear to have been mixed up. Some of the radishes that were planted were spring radishes, some of the smaller red ones, and some were winter radishes, which is what I really wanted to plant. So if you can take a look here, you'll see this is one of the winter radishes. If you'll see how big it's getting here. The red ones you're supposed to pull when they're smaller so they don't get too tough and lose their flavor. However, the winter radishes you can leave to get larger. They get a little bit sweeter as they get larger and they taste better. So the missing radishes that I've pulled were the smaller ones. I've also pulled some of the green onions. They got large enough to harvest as well out of this bed. As you can see, the spinach has enjoyed the cold winter weather as well. We have a lot of spinach still growing here. The green onions are larger. It's time to harvest some of these. If you can see how big they've gotten right here. That's a good size to harvest right there. We did lose some of the spinach to some pests, probably slugs or snails, earlier in the season. So what I have done is I have come back in and I have planted a little bit of lettuce in here. You can take a look right here. You'll see a sprout starting. This is going to be butter crunch lettuce. And I put some seeds in here because this is a leaf lettuce, and as it grows, during the cooler spring temperatures and the late winter, I can go ahead and harvest some of the leaves as they grow. And about the time it gets too warm for the spinach, it'll be too warm for the lettuce as well because it is a cooler weather vegetable. And I will end up pulling those and planting something else in here at that point. This is the beet bed. Again, we did lose a few of the beet plants, either to weather or pests. Wanted to show you, however, that we do still have some beets that are growing very nicely. You can tell that they're getting larger when they start to come out above the top of the soil. I'm not sure how much you can see here, but we do have a nice sized beet right here growing. So that one's going to Tastes good. I'm going to leave it to grow and get a little bit bigger along with the rest of these until it's actually time to amend the soil in the beds, and then I'll go ahead and I'll pull these beets. Last but definitely not least is our broccoli bed. As you can see here in the back, this doesn't really look a whole lot like broccoli. Apparently, one of my seeds that I planted, I must have mislabeled it, and we have a cabbage here in the broccoli bed. That's fine. He's happy here. We're going to leave him. He's still growing, and as you can see, he is starting to form his head in the middle. So we're going to leave him for a little bit until it's time to prep this bed, which is fine. But this broccoli plant, as you can see, is starting to grow its first head of broccoli here in the middle. And this broccoli is doing really, really well. It loves this spot. As you can see, we have a beautiful head in the middle. And then around the sides, we have some side heads of broccoli here. I've counted them this morning. I think we have 9 side heads of broccoli here growing around this main head. So this broccoli plant is really happy, and I'm really happy with it. Now, I know in a lot of my videos I've told you need to keep a planner or a journal so you can refer back to it from year to year and see how your garden went, if some plant grew better in one bed than another, if one didn't get enough sun. It's a good idea to have that so you don't repeat past mistakes. I want to show you a copy of the vegetable garden planner that I've created, and this is to help me plan out our spring and summer vegetable garden here at Hampton Park. And I'm going to leave this out on display, so if you come into the library and you visit our seedlings or our seed library, you can take a look at this and see how things are going. I've got a cover sheet here. When you open it, I went ahead and I listed out a few reasons why to make a planner. You can see that I mention a garden map in here. I've got a planting calendar and a garden journal that I'll show you in just a moment. And again, we welcome volunteers to help out. Let us know if you're interested. You can learn a lot of great gardening tips just by actually doing it yourself. So what I've done here is I've created a Hampton Park vegetable garden map. I've kind of drawn out the shapes of the beds I have, and I've listed what I plan to plant this spring and summer in each of the beds. And then I have gone ahead and created a color-coded list. I will go through, and as I update the beds, I will change the color on my map so I and everybody else at the library can easily see what stage each of these beds are in without having to go out and guess. And this also says what I'm going to plant in each of the beds to kind of remind me where I'm going to put what. The next page is my spring garden prep checklist. So there are several things you have to do before you get started, and I've created a list here. I check off whenever I finished each of these. I'm not ready to prep my beds yet because I am still trying to get a little more out of my winter veggies, and I'm not ready to put seedlings out quite yet, but I will check that off whenever I get the other beds ready. And I'm actually about to check my setup for indoor seed starting. I've gone ahead and included a copy of the UGA Extension Office's vegetable planting chart. They have this handy guide online. It tells you, it lists a lot of different types of vegetables, some of the preferred types of these vegetables, the specific kinds, so that you'll know what grows well in Georgia, and planting dates, how to plant them, etc. These planting dates, just keep in mind they are for central Georgia, so we'll plant ours here in North Georgia a little bit later than what they have listed on here. There's 2 pages of that, and I find that very handy. And then once I decided what seeds I wanted to plant, I created a chart and I put the variety, what I'm going to be planting here. I made myself a little note whether I can start it inside or not. Radishes and carrots are roots. They don't really like to be transplanted, so I will be planting those directly into the garden as soon as it's time. I have whether I can or whether I need to start it outdoors. So I know that I can start these indoors or outdoors. All of these can be started outdoors directly. I've made a list of when I'm planning to plant my seeds, whether they're going to be indoors or outdoors. And then I've got when I'm going to move them outside, and that's going to be based on our last frost date, when it's safe to put them outside. And the last column is whether I can get a second sowing. This is going to be for plants like our green onions. And if you move on down here, it's going to be our radishes. These are going to grow quickly, and I should have time to harvest them and then plant another batch this season. And then my last page, and I will actually add more pages to it, is a garden journal. I'm going to list the date of the week, and I'm just going to keep kind of some notes as to what I've noticed over that week. And if anybody is interested, you can come and take a look and see the garden journal and how the garden is progressing. If I plant something too early, I'll be making a note. Lost this plant to freeze. Don't plant until after this date next year. And this is the biggest part that I'm going to refer back to in future years. So I suggest that you create at least just a garden journal. You don't have to do the whole notebook, but it does help to know when you're going to be planting things so you don't have to go back and look things up each time. But I do suggest that you create at least a journal if you don't do a full planning notebook. Thank you for watching Roots and Readers. We'll be back in a couple of months with highlights from our summer garden. If you have an idea for topics that you'd like to learn more about, please leave a comment. And don't forget to come by your library for more books on gardening. Remember, at Forsyth County Public Library, we know books.